Jesus was a beacon of hope for those who were hurting. He traveled throughout the land of Galilee, healing the sick and preaching about God's love. One day, Jesus decided to cross the Sea of Galilee with his disciples. They sought a quiet place to rest and pray. Little did they know, a large crowd was already gathering on the other side, eager to witness more of Jesus' miracles. Word of Jesus' compassion and power had spread like wildfire. People from surrounding towns and villages flocked to him. They brought their sick loved ones, desperate for healing and a touch from the divine. Jesus, filled with compassion, never turned anyone away. He healed their illnesses and offered words of comfort and encouragement. As Jesus and his disciples crossed the sea, they noticed a massive crowd gathering on the shore. The people had seen them leaving and eagerly awaited their arrival. The crowd was a sea of faces, filled with a mixture of anticipation and desperation. They had heard stories of Jesus' miracles and believed he could heal their sick and offer them hope. The disciples were amazed by the sheer number of people. They had never witnessed such a large gathering before. As they got closer, they could hear the murmur of voices and feel the palpable energy in the air. The crowd pressed in closer, eager to catch a glimpse of Jesus and receive his blessing.
Where shall we buy bread that these may eat?
Seeing the enormous crowd, Jesus turned to Philip, one of his disciples, and asked. This question wasn't about a lack of resources, but rather a test of Philip's faith.
200 denarii worth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may have a little.
Philip, looking at the multitude, panicked. He knew that buying enough bread to feed everyone would cost a fortune, far beyond their means. He saw only the limitations, the vastness of the need, and the scarcity of their resources. He failed to see the unlimited power of God working through Jesus.
There is a lad here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. But what are they among so many?
Another disciple, Andrew, spoke up. It seemed like an insignificant offering, a mere drop in the bucket compared to the vast hunger of the crowd. Yet Jesus instructed his disciples to have everyone sit down in groups on the green grass. With a heart full of compassion and trust in God's power, Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish. He looked up to heaven, gave thanks, and blessed the food. Then he began breaking the bread and fish, handing them to his disciples to distribute among the crowd. It was a simple act, yet it held the promise of a miracle. A prophet from God, the crowd's recognition. The crowd, having witnessed the miracle of the feeding of the 5,000, were amazed. They recognized that Jesus was no ordinary man.
This is of a truth, that prophet that should come into the world.
They declared, believing that Jesus was the long-awaited Messiah. This miracle wasn't just about physical hunger, it was about spiritual hunger. Jesus, by showing his power over nature and his compassion for their needs, revealed himself as the one who could satisfy the deepest longings of their hearts. The people saw in him the fulfillment of their hopes and the answer to their prayers. Walking on water, another astonishing display of power. Later that evening, Jesus instructed his disciples to get into a boat and go ahead of him to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, to Capernaum. As darkness fell and a storm arose, the disciples found themselves battling strong winds and high waves. Fear gripped their hearts as they struggled to keep the boat afloat.
It's so dark and the waves are so high. How will we ever make it to the other side?
Suddenly they saw Jesus walking towards them on the water. Terrified, they cried out in fear, mistaking him for a ghost, but he said to them,
It is I, don't be afraid.
Then they were willing to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the shore where they were heading. The bread of life. Jesus offers eternal nourishment. The next day, the crowd that had witnessed the miracle of the loaves and fishes found Jesus again. They were still hungry, not just for physical food, but for a deeper understanding of who Jesus was and what he offered.
I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst.
Jesus used the miracle of the loaves and fishes to teach a profound spiritual truth. He was not just offering them physical sustenance, which would soon perish, but spiritual nourishment that would last for eternity. He was inviting them to partake in a different kind of bread, a bread that satisfies the deepest longings of the soul. A timeless message for today, trusting in God's provision. The story of the feeding of the 5,000 is a timeless message of hope and faith. It reminds us that with God, all things are possible, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. Just as Jesus provided for the physical hunger of the crowd, he also provides for our spiritual needs today. When we come to him with open hearts and humble spirits, he offers us the bread of life, his very self, to nourish and sustain us. This story challenges us to examine our own faith. Do we believe that God is able to provide for our needs, even when we face difficult circumstances? Do we trust that he can multiply our meager offerings and use them for his glory? The miracle of the feeding of the 5,000 calls us to step out in faith, trusting in God's abundant provision and sharing his love and grace with a world in need.